commercial real estate transactions can make or break a healthcare practice, yet most providers navigate these critical decisions without proper representation. Our next guest, Colin Carr, is changing that reality as CEO and founder of Carr, the nation's leading healthcare real estate advisor. With over 17 years of experience and more than 1,000 completed transactions, Colin has saved healthcare providers hundreds of millions of dollars by exclusively representing their interests as tenants and buyers. Leading a team of nearly 150 experts coast to coast, Colin serves over 6,000 active clients, ranging from solo practitioners to large private equity-backed groups. Driven by a passion to level the playing field in commercial real estate, Colin shares how Carr's strategic approach transforms what was once an unfair fight into substantial savings, time efficiency, and peace of mind. Join us to discover how proper representation can maximize profitability through real estate. Let's go.
Welcome to Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli, where we highlight and speak with the innovators, the game changers, and the pioneers who are deeply passionate and relentless in solving the problems our world is facing today. This is your opportunity to connect with and learn from these leaders and to support them on their mission. Perhaps they will soon be hearing your story as well. This is Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. I look forward to having you on this journey with us.
Hi, Colin. A big welcome to our podcast today. I'm so excited to have you on.
Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, given your extensive experience completing over 1,000 commercial real estate transactions and your passion for helping healthcare providers maximize profitability through real estate through your nationwide company, Carr, I'm honored and excited to have this conversation today. But before we dive in, a bit of housekeeping. While listening to any of our episodes, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you will automatically receive episode updates in your podcast player. Simply search Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And lastly, please visit the bottom of the episode notes to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter in order to further the conversations occurring on this podcast. All right, Colin, it's almost time for our community to learn how you and the Carr team are pioneering healthcare real estate as the nation's leading advisor with over 150 experts helping thousands of healthcare providers achieve the most favorable terms on their lease and purchase negotiations. But first, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to others who are passionate about reimagining the health of our world?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I would hit two things. I would hit never stop pressing in the vision category. How can we do it better? How can we touch more people? What would it look like if we removed limitations? And those are questions in some form or variation that I'm always asking for myself personally, professionally, in any realm of my life. And the other thing I would say is the ability to run with visionaries. And to me, run doesn't always mean that you're at a coffee shop one-on-one. It means you're listening to a podcast like this. You know, you're surrounding yourself with experts in every possible area and category you can. And sometimes that's in an audience at a meeting or convention. Other times it's in your car listening to the thought leaders and podcasts. But keeping thought leadership and keeping visionaries in front of you to challenge the way you think and to inspire you, to me, is a game changer.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Run with visionaries in all kinds of different ways and capacities to do so. Colin, how important is that when you start thinking about, I mean, you're working with healthcare and, you know, national leaders across this nation. You guys have been doing it, and we're going to talk about this on the other side of the commercial break. You guys have now been doing it for almost 17 years. Incredible feat in and of itself. What has it been like with working with healthcare's, you know, leaders across this nation as they continue to not only define today with their real estate transactions, but tomorrow? I got to imagine you've dealt with a lot of visionaries in your line of business over these past, 15 plus years.
Yeah, it's been a blast. We started out working with just individual sole providers, sole practitioners, later moved on to doing multi-location, larger groups, to large private equity-backed groups, the VC groups. So today, as we're recording this, we have over 6,000 clients that we're actively doing work for right now, coast to coast, and it's everything under the sun. So it's every form of healthcare, medical, vision, dental, chiropractic, therapy, et cetera. And it's everything from the person that's starting their first practice to the person who's scaling to their 10th location, to we have groups that have literally hundreds or thousands of locations and everything in between. So we do the best we can to treat every client as if it's their one and only location and it's their everything, because it typically is. But it's been incredibly rewarding. If we do a phenomenal job for that practice, it affects the provider, the doctor, it affects their staff, it affects their patients, and it ultimately affects the community. And there's always a trickle effect to the other, couple of dozen vendors that have the privilege of working with that practice too. Equipment, technology, architecture. There's so many people that touch every transaction or every opportunity. So it's a vital role that we play.
Oh, so exciting, Colin. We have so much to discuss because you're right. You're touching, these visionaries, these healthcare leaders, but of course, the downstream and the trickle effect into those communities. You're touching and inspiring so many folks along the way as we continue to work together to really push the healthcare industry forward. So cannot wait to get back together on the other side of this commercial break to discuss everything and more around your organization, CAR. We're going to get after we get back from thanking our community champion sponsor.
Healthcare faces a paradox that echoes through generations. While the current practices that help heal patients today are vital, it is crucial to evaluate them through an environmental lens. OSHA's Responsible for Tomorrow initiative is a collection of interviews featuring influential thought leaders and industry experts like you who share their sustainability strategies, insights, and provide valuable perspectives from diverse industries to inspire innovation within the healthcare sector. OSHA invites you to join this journey. Want to share your sustainability story? OSHA is actively looking for partners to highlight the important and inspiring work being done around the globe. Check out OSHA's Responsible for Tomorrow initiative and series at OSHA.com. That's OSSUR.com. Or visit the episode notes and click on their link. Together, and with OSHA helping lead the way, let's all be responsible for tomorrow.
All right, we are back with Colin Carr, CEO at CAR. Colin, thank you so much. Running with visionaries. I absolutely love it. So true. Hey, this industry, as you know as well as I do, again, you guys have been at it in healthcare for, almost 17 years now. This industry is just chock full of visionaries. You have to be, right? This is an industry that literally touches every single one of us across this nation in some capacity or other. Cannot wait to hear how all of this came to be, how you've been working with these visionaries for so long. We have a lot to discuss. Again, how the organization came to be, why healthcare, how did you get into that niche? It's a big niche in and of itself. And then, of course, got to discuss who is CAR today. I'm sure things have changed over those years, but who is CAR today? How are you guys making those positive impacts in the marketplace? What are you seeing happening right now? And obviously, the healthcare industry has been through great upheaval, a lot of change over the past 5+ years. So we'll discuss all of that. And of course, we've got to look a little future state. We'll grab that crystal ball. Where do you and the team see things heading? Where is CAR heading as well? And then, of course, we'll bring it back to today on how the heck our community can be helping your organization. We have a lot of amazing leaders rallied around the podcast. Always love to help our guests. But of course, we got to first start there. Colin, how did all of this come to be? How did this become in focus? Take us behind the scenes, call it, 17 or so years ago. How did this come to be?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. So started in real estate when I was 19. Did not know what I wanted to study after high school. So I did the proverbial, I'll take a semester off and figure it out. And just got after it in real estate. I started managing apartment complexes, got fascinated with real estate. And I did that for a number of years, mostly multifamily properties. And I did that back in Michigan. Moved to Colorado in my early 20s, kept managing, multifamily apartment complexes, enjoyed it, but then had an opportunity to get my broker's license when I was 22 and go work for a gentleman that represented large retailers. So he did Walmart, Wendy's, Blockbuster type tenants, coffee franchises, stuff like that. So got exposed to the retail side of brokerage. I enjoyed it, but I really liked working with individual business owners. So I started doing more industrial and office deals and just really thrived working with, an individual owner that it just meant more to them. So it was great helping Walmart open another location, but I just love the feeling of helping, a business owner with their next location or helping them to scale. So I did that for a number of years. And over a period of time, one of my clients that I had done a lot of landlord work for bought a medical building and he asked me to lease it. So started listing this medical complex for healthcare practices. And that was really my entrance into the medical space, most in the landlord side, but I started working with doctors and the same thing. I just really enjoyed working with them. And the culmination of how we created our current company was I was doing landlord work. I was doing tenant and buyer work, two different sides of the transaction. Landlord wants the highest lease rate, highest sale price. Tenants obviously want the lowest lease rate, lowest sale price. So mutual objective to get a lease or a sale done, but the means by which you get there, there's a couple $100,000 on the line in even a small transaction. So I was doing a lot of landlord work, and I had a couple deals that went down within a short period of time where I was working for the largest medical REIT in the world. So A REIT is a real estate investment trust. So just like you would buy stock in Google or Apple or Amazon, they use your money to build their enterprise or build warehouses or whatever. You can put money into a REIT and then they take your money and buy real estate and they give you a distribution. So I was working for the largest medical REIT in the world, and we had 3 lease renewals coming up. We had a plastic surgeon, we had a pharmacy, and then we had another transaction. And the asset manager for the landlord asked me, he said, "Colin, have you met with these tenants?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do they have a broker? Like, do they have an advisor?" My answer was no. He said, "Do they know the market?" No. "Are they willing to move?" No. I had asked the questions. The doctors should not have answered me, but they were upfront. They gave me all the answers. And so when I told the asset manager those answers, he came back to me and goes, "Great, go back to them at this lease rate." And the lease rate he wanted me to go back to them at was literally like 35% above market. Like, it wasn't like a couple dollars a square foot. It was an astronomical gouging of these doctors. And I was taken back by, I'm like, man, that seems really aggressive. And he's like, these guys don't know what they're doing. If they're dumb enough to take the deal, they'll take the deal. And so I asked him, I said, well, how much free rent? How much TI allowance? Like, are we going to reset their base year? Are we going to give them anything? And the guy's like, who do you work for? Do you work for me or you work for them? And I'm like, well, I work for you. But I mean, like, I get getting a fair deal or a great deal, but like, this feels a little predatory. And he literally looks at me and goes, "Get it done or I'll find someone who else will." And so I presented the deal to those doctors one at a time, and they each signed off on it. And this was going back literally like 17, 18 years ago. And these doctors each overpaid by like $400,000, $500,000 over what they should have paid. And that's going back like in 17, 18 years. I'd say, with the cost of inflation and money today, that's probably like a $700,000, $800,000 mistake in today's dollars. So it was one of those things where no one forced these people to sign these leases. They could have hired representation. They didn't know it was available. They didn't know how the game was played. No one lied to them. No one told them this was a great deal. No one told them they had to sign it. We didn't play in those games. We just presented to them. And because they weren't educated and they didn't understand the rules of engagement or posture or strategy or going to market or how to negotiate multiple landlords, they literally just said, "I'm too busy to deal with this one," signed off on them. And like one at a time, each like signed up for a $400,000, $500,000 loss. So after like a short period of time of just seeing it over and over again, and then I had been on the tenant side a couple times and I had saved my clients like $300,000, $400,000 working on the tenant side, I just realized, look, it's not a fair fight. These people are great people. They need representation. No one's advocating for them. There was a list of 20 brokers that would sign up to work for the landlord, but nobody was working on the tenant buyer side of the healthcare transaction for whatever reason. So I put together the model and launched CAR at the beginning of 2009. And today we're in all 50 states. We're coast to coast. And as I mentioned before, we've got over 6,000 clients that we're actively doing work for. And all we do is healthcare. And we only work on behalf of the doctors, the providers on the tenant and buyer side. So no listings, no signs in front of buildings, no dual agency. We don't try to get both sides of a deal. We don't try to pretend like you can advocate for 2 opposing parties. We only work on the doctor side of the transaction as a tenant or buyer.
Wow, what a powerful story, Colin. Thank you for really framing it up and discussing, how this came to be. Colin, let's still go back in those moments in time and leading up to today. Did you see anybody else doing this? You kind of mentioned it already. There wasn't really anybody out there representing these doctors, these healthcare practices. Was there any reason why? Did you find out why that wasn't happening? Obviously, you filled that void and are doing quite successful. We'll talk about how things are going today. But were there any specific reasons as to why there was no representation for that side of the transaction?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can answer it in a couple of ways. Statistically speaking, like less than 1% of commercial real estate agents only work on the tenant and buyer side. Less than 1%. The vast majority do primarily or exclusively landlord seller work. And then occasionally people will do both sides, or both tenant and buyer rep and landlord seller rep. But for whatever reason, people just want signs in front of buildings. Like real estate as a whole, people go for listings. In commercial real estate, a lot of the brokers, they want to list a property because if they do a good job, they get to do multiple deals a year at the same property. They work for the same landlord year after year. And so I think honestly, it just has to do with a motivation standpoint of, chasing individual deals or finding one client and then doing 10 deals with them. And so for me personally, every time I went and interviewed for a landlord listing, like it was me versus 4 or 5 other brokers. And then I'd go talk to a doctor and I'd say, well, who else have you met with? And they'd be like, no one. Like, I don't even know who does this. And so to me, it just felt like it was a blue ocean, and it takes more work. I mean, it's a lot more effort to advise someone who doesn't know what they're doing on the tenant buyer side than it does if you're working for a landlord, they're telling you what to do. But it's, in my opinion, 10 times more rewarding to move the needle a couple $100,000 in favor of a doctor than it is to, take advantage of an unrepresented tenant like I used to do.
Well, as well as I do, those types of savings can help with that practice. As an example, buy that MRI machine or buy that X-ray or buy that piece of hardware that may be additive and helpful to the community that they serve, right? Just as small examples that could be, again, going back to what you said earlier, that trickle down effect into the community. So powerful. Colin, what a way to really frame it up. And let's also discuss those, clients and those transactions that you mentioned a moment ago as well. What has been the feedback from those clients of yours? They must be thinking, as you mentioned earlier, when you first asked them, who else have you met with? And they said, no one has approached us. What has the feedback been like from these clients of yours? They must be really enjoying it, knowing that there's finally somebody there on their behalf. What has the feedback been like?
Yeah, it's a game changer. When you show a healthcare provider what's actually negotiable and how much is available for them to either capture or lose, and then you start running the numbers for them, not just in lease rates or purchase price, but in other concessions like free rent packages, build-out allowances, annual increases. And then you get into some of the business things that are negotiated, like an assignability clause, like can you actually get out of your lease if you sell your practice? Things like that, both the financial and the business side. And you show them what's on the line. Once they're educated about how much money is in play and they realize that you're there to advocate for them and you're there to protect them, I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, these doctors, a lot of them, especially the more seasoned ones, they realize how much money they've lost. And for us to change, that outcome for them, it's incredibly meaningful. I mean, like realistically, I think a lot of times we throw out numbers like we saved a doctor $400,000 and it doesn't really register because for me and you, like, just be honest, if you checked out your credit card statement and there was a charge on your credit card for $400 or $1,200, like there's no way you wouldn't put a phone call into American Express and be like, hey, that wasn't me. Like, there's no way you're just going to like let a charge of $400. And you probably wouldn't let a charge of $50 go through. If your Apple Pay popped up and said, someone used your card for $50, like you would call on that. And so, we're talking about literally like $300,000, $400,000 savings on some of these deals. And it gets way larger than that. You get like a 10,000 foot user or like a larger group practice, it gets a lot higher than that. But even if it was $5,000, the money is meaningful. But I think at the end of the day, it's the peace of mind that the doctor has knowing I'm in the best location for what I want to do in this season. I'm in the right area, the right demographics. I know the competition. I didn't leave money on the table. I wasn't taken advantage of. That peace of mind is invaluable. And so we bring a savings of money. We bring a significant savings of time. We'll save them 30, 40, 50 hours of their time, like legitimately in our entire process. But then ultimately just this peace of mind element, knowing my real estate was protected. I did the best I could with what I have. And then on top of that, I saved tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like that's kind of the trifecta. It's the time, money, and the peace of mind that we're going for.
Love that. And then Colin, of course, let's talk a little bit kind of in the weeds, if you will, or some of these things that you've seen thematically over the number of years, especially for the folks tuning in, because some of these folks are exactly the people that you're describing that you and Carr serve. We said earlier, you guys have completed over 1,000 commercial real estate transactions specifically for these healthcare providers, these organizations. What are some of the most common and costly mistakes that you see healthcare providers and professionals making when negotiating their office space leases?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will summarize maybe the top 3 or 4 because we could hit a laundry list here. The number one mistake that we see providers making or practices making is they don't hire representation. They just take the DIY approach. They like logically ask the question, like, can I do this? And the answer is yes. Like you're capable of saying, send me a proposal or let me sign a lease, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a good result. And this is a basic example. I can remove my own tooth. Like I can grab a pair of pliers and wave it out. Like I can do things to myself that maybe give me an appearance of like the outcome, but they don't give me the best results. So a lot of the providers think, well, I'm intelligent or I know my landlord or they called me or I have their email address. I'll just start the conversation. That's a fool's game plan. Like there's no way that a Fortune 100 or 500 company has some random person just call on their real estate. Like Starbucks doesn't just say, hey, someone make a phone call to the landlord. Like they have someone who all they do is real estate. Like it doesn't matter if it's a retailer like Starbucks or Chipotle or Chick-fil-A, or if it's an office user like a Chase Bank or a Lockheed Martin. Like they're not just winging it. Like they have someone who all they do is real estate for a living. and then they still hire an outside broker in almost every deal they do. So they have an internal real estate expert, and then they hire an outside real estate expert, and that's how they do real estate. And then you get into these healthcare practices, and they literally would just have the doctor or office manager pick up the phone and say, send me a proposal, or what would you do for me? Or can you show me a space? And it's just like, you're literally signing up to lose a couple $100,000. So the do-it-yourself approach, number one, is the worst offender, no question. The next one is there's no strategy, there's no posture. And what I mean by that is they're only negotiating with one person. If you're getting ready to do a real estate transaction and you pick a property, and this is the most prevalent on lease renewals too. So you're in a space, your lease is coming up for renewal, and you tell your landlord to send me a proposal, and then you negotiate with your current landlord, and the only basis you have is against your current terms. Like, you don't know what's the landlord down the street willing to do. What would it look like if you were to purchase real estate, and what would a purchase versus lease analysis look like? What if the landlord down the street, or two or three, were willing to pay for half or 2/3 of your build out, and the lease rate was 20% less, and they'd give you enough free rent to offset your moving costs, and you get into a brand new space with less money? And so negotiating with only one landlord, this happens because people take a residential approach. You look at property, you find a house, you submit an offer. If the seller says yes, they sign it, you're under contract. In commercial real estate, you negotiate it on a non-binding basis. It's a letter of intent. It has a disclaimer that you're one of multiple landlords or sellers. It's non-binding. In a strategy that makes sense for a doctor, you go to market, you look at your top 5, 6, 7 properties, you pick the top 3 or 4, and your broker is sending offers to 3 or 4 landlords, and you're going back and forth like 3 or 4 rounds before you settle in on the top 2 or 3 or the top 1 specifically. And so this whole idea of like just choosing one landlord or talking to your current landlord and saying, would you do this for me, or would you do that for me? If you can't quote the address and the terms that you're getting offered from someone else in the market, you're never going to see the best terms, like, ever. I mean, literally, it's like, would you give me more free rent? No. Would you give me a higher TI allowance? Sure, I'll give you a little bit more. Would you do this for me? Landlords literally know that doctors are just begging them. They're not negotiating, they're begging. Like, would you please do this? It's not unless the landlord has a fear of loss, where they're going to have to go find another tenant, or it's going to sit vacant for a year or two, or they're going to walk away from $1 million lease or whatever it is. It's not until there's a fear of loss is that landlord or that seller going to give you their best terms. And you cannot create a fear of loss unless you have viable other properties that you've actually gone to and figured out. So that second one is only negotiate with one person. The third mistake is not having a strategy, not having a posture. And so we could talk more about those things, but the whole idea is this. If you're bucking the system and doing the opposite of what Amazon does, or any other large company that you like or don't like, but you think they're savvy, then you got to ask the question, if I'm trying to run a successful business here, why am I doing the opposite of what Chick-fil-A does, or Starbucks, or Chipotle? Like, why would I be doing what they do? And what they do is they don't do it by themselves. They have real estate professionals internally. They have real estate professionals externally. They always go to market on new deals and renewals. They always look at options to lease or purchase. They always run the numbers, and they always negotiate multiple parties. At the end of the process, when they're making a decision, they never wonder, was there a better location? Were there better terms available? Were we protected? Every one of those questions, they can check the box saying, I know the answer to that, to that, to that. And at the end of the day, they can say, we got the best terms possible in the best location, and they have no buyer's remorse for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Unlike most doctors that would hear us speak at a conference or a CE event, and then we do a lease analysis, and we're like, well, congratulations for finding this location, but you overpaid by $400,000, and we can't undo the mistake until your lease comes up in 7 years.
Very good 3 call-outs you just listed, and way to really summarize those things that these leaders should be mindful of as they work through, whether it be renewal or net new leases or purchase, as you mentioned. So really strong 3 call-outs there, Colin. Of course, we also need to discuss the ever-moving, dynamic of the industry, especially in this post-pandemic world. And, as we said earlier, you've had thousands of healthcare practices trusting CAR each year. So what are the current trends that you're seeing with all of those folks in healthcare real estate, especially now in this post-pandemic environment? And how are location preferences and even space utilization changing because of these new dynamics?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about commercial real estate, you got to break it down into different types of commercial real estate. So a lot of times in residential, it's really driven by like the city or the sub-market or neighborhood. In commercial real estate, it's driven more by the type of property. So like what's the demand for like class A retail versus like class B or C office space? After the pandemic, a lot of large companies realized they didn't need as much office space or as many locations. And so you saw a lot of consolidation and a lot of exiting office space. But what you have not seen in the last 3-4 years are class A retail centers becoming vacant or having huge vacancy rates at like the best retail. And that's not happening. And so retail has remained very, very strong. Industrial has remained extremely strong. Multifamily apartments, like they cannot build them fast enough. So we talk about commercial real estate. If we were to say, hey, what segment of commercial real estate's been hit the hardest, it would be class B and C office. And when I say class, it's a subjective, arbitrary like delineation or breakdown, but class A, those are the nicest properties everyone would want to be in. They cost more, but they're the prime location, high quality. Class B is a good location or maybe a great location, but an average building. But again, it's kind of a class B. And then class C is like, it's not a great location or the building is old, functionally obsolete, like needs a lot of attention, maybe a ton of vacancy. It just brings down like the experience when you go up to the property or go into it. So class B and C office space, there's huge opportunities there. If you're looking for, purchasing a larger building, or if you're looking for an opportunity to own a property and then lease it out to multiple tenants, like there's going to be opportunities in class B and C always. Class A retail, like best retail that Starbucks or Chipotle wants to go in, that's as competitive and as expensive today as it has ever been. And so that segment was not hit at all by COVID or that's happened in the past. Stock markets going up and down, wars, presidency changes, all these things that happen that throw the stock market off or throw people's confidence off, interest rates, like it just hasn't changed. So, class A retail has basically just kept going up and up. Industrial, for the most part, is flying high. Like they can't build the warehouse space fast enough to ship you your packages or to store your goods. So when it comes to healthcare space, there's opportunity. There's no question. There's always room for a good or a better deal, but it's not a fire sale. Like there's not like people thought for a long time, like because of COVID or whatever, I'm going to get like a half off sale. Like it's just not happening. Like landlords are strong today. They have more momentum because there's less vacancy at the best properties. Real estate is a vacancy or occupancy driven equation. The more vacancy, the more that they're struggling to fill spaces, the more the tenant has the upper hand. But the more competitive and tight a market is, the more that there's multiple tenants circling for similar spaces, the more competitive. So if you're looking for a deal and you're in healthcare, I would tell you to look at class B office space. Like look for a nice office building. It's not the nicest one you've ever seen, but it's going to be nice, it's going to be quality. And we're looking for ones that have maybe a little more vacancy because those landlords are motivated to make deals and they will give you a higher building allowance. They'll give you more free rent. They'll be more flexible with things like signage or parking, stuff like that. And so that's where we're seeing like the best opportunity. Otherwise, if you're like, hey, I want to be at the corner of Main and Main, or I want the brand new medical office building on the hospital campus, we'll get you the best terms possible for your situation or requirement, but we're going to have a strategy or a posture in order to get there. Otherwise, you're going to give up a lot of money unnecessarily.
Now let's look a little forward here as well, Colin. And, where do you and the team see the biggest opportunities and challenges in healthcare real estate? And how is CAR positioning itself to help healthcare providers navigate this evolving landscape of medical practice ownership and location strategy?
Yeah, this is what I would say. It's going to take something significant to disrupt the market. I'm talking really significant. People say, well, what would that be? Well, it's not just a blip in the stock market. Like when they announced the tariffs, the market dropped as a whole over 20% and then it shot right back up again. There's been times the last few months, there's been like 3 or 4 different like world conflicts or wars happening. We changed presidents, interest rates are not quite where we want them. And none of that's been capable of pushing the real estate market to where it's considered soft or it's not where it's supposed to be. Residential's softened a decent amount. You will see that in a lot of different markets. You'll see more inventory. Houses are on the market longer today than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. So residential is softened, but when it comes to commercial, it's going to take something significant to disrupt this market. And I could predict something, but it would just be just that. I just gave you 4 or 5 things that have not been enough to really move the needle. So I think people need to be prepared for this is the new norm. Like if you are a contractor and you were able to charge $200 a square foot to dental space versus 150, even if commodities go down, even if steel goes down, even if construction costs go down for labor, like you're not going to voluntarily lower your prices. Like, it's just not going to happen. So do I see like the cost of construction going down? No. Do I see architectural fees going down? No. Do I see consultants and practice management groups saying, let me give you a lower price for my services? No. So I don't see prices going down. I think this is the new norm. And so that's history. I mean, it cost more today than it did in 1980. It cost more in 1980 than it did in 1940. Like just the way the world works. So to me, the game plan is not like wish it was back in the day or if only it was 2007, like that kind of thing. To me, how can I do the best I can with what I have? How do I take advantage of the tax changes that just went into place this last week with the new bill being passed? Like, how do I take advantage of bonus depreciation for my practice and maximizing tax deductions? If I'm going to build a new office, like, how can I get the best pricing, or how can I get the best, most qualified design team? How can I get the landlord to give me the highest build out allowance or the largest free rent package so I could offset moving costs or whatever it might be? To me, the questions are, how can I capitalize and do the best I can in every category that I'm faced with versus I wish that the economics were dead? Because you can't wish it away. It is what it is. But you can choose to hire really good people, and you can choose to save $300,000 in your next negotiation versus doing it yourself or just, hoping that you get the best terms and finding out later that you did not.
And then, of course, bringing it back to today and current state as well, we got to be able to figure out ways to help you and the team out, because you've given us so much on this podcast episode already, and we have an amazing community rallied around our episode here and our podcast. Colin, what's one problem, need, or question that you and the CAR team have that our community can be helping you with?
Well, you said one. I'll give you two. Okay. I'll give you one that's truly for the client. I'll give you one for us. If you're thinking about doing a transaction, or you have a lease coming up, or you're thinking about scaling or purchasing, or someone who is, just ask the question, like, do you have someone that's really qualified, that's really talented helping you? And if they could save you a couple $100,000, would it be worth the conversation? And if they got someone who's phenomenal, they trust, awesome. If they don't, like, we would love an opportunity to meet with them and talk to them. It's a very simple process, and we will tell them instantly if we can move the needle, and they'll be able to tell quickly if they like and trust us. And so that's a really simple one. And then this one might be a little more unusual, but we need some more amazing people. We've got 150 plus agents. We've got a couple dozen corporate staff. We've got the ability to help a lot more people, though. So there's a lot of industries, equipment, technology, merchandise, a number of them that they're just not able to do what they used to be able to do financially or work-life balance. And so we've got some phenomenal opportunities to help put people in a place to thrive and win at a high level and to really help people. So, I think almost everyone would say, yeah, I've got, good friends or colleagues, peers are looking to make a change or a shift. And if healthcare real estate sounds like it's of interest, we've got an amazing culture and amazing opportunity to help a lot of people. And so we're scaling rapidly right now, and we have been growing consistent for 17 plus years, but we're really trying to go to the next level. And the reason is this: if we don't help them, statistically speaking, like 19 out of 20 doctors are not going to get any help. It's not like they're using somebody else. It's not like Coke versus Pepsi, who are you drinking, or Ford versus Chevy, to just give a pretty basic analogy. Like, it's literally like, they work with us or some random group, or they just do it themselves. And there's just too much on the line for these guys to do it themselves. So we're looking for great people, and we love to have those conversations.
Well, in order to have those conversations, Colin, how do they get a hold of you? Social media handles, websites, or otherwise? How does our community connect with you and the CAR team?
Yeah, best way to get a hold of us is our website. It's car.us. If you're looking to start a conversation from a real estate perspective, you can click to find an agent or contact us. Everything that we do for our clients is free. We get paid by the landlord or seller as part of the deal. So we can do a lease analysis. We can do a purchase versus lease analysis. We can help connect you with the right people. We've got specialized people across the country, literally thousands of partners. So if you need help with something, we can find a couple people to introduce you to them. We got a ton of resources as far as education. Like, if you want to get educated in commercial real estate, FAQs, glossary, videos, we've got so much information. If you want to study up and you want to become a subject matter expert, like, we've got you. And then that's probably the best way to start. So LinkedIn at Car Healthcare, YouTube, same place. A lot of really quality education, though.
And for our listening community, to simply scroll on down into your favorite podcast player where you're accessing this episode. There will be those contact points for Colin and the CAR team. Or you can head over to our free global online community at passionatepioneers.com. There will be a post for Colin's episode, and we'll have all of those contact points listed as well, again, over at passionatepioneers.com. Colin, what an exciting and important episode that we've been able to have together here today. But of course, before we let you off the hook and get you out of here, we have one more piece for you. It's a fill in the blank. I'm a passionate pioneer because
I love helping people transform their lives. And whether that's a better location or lease savings or just peace of mind, if we can help someone in any area, let alone like their largest asset or their largest income source, so we could move the needle there, that to me is life-changing, and that's what we love to do.
Love it. Awesome. Colin, thank you so much for taking the time to be with our community today to share all the wonderful work that has been going on for almost 17 years now with the CAR team, and of course, where you guys are today and heading tomorrow as well. We appreciate your time, your energy, and your passion to continue to help move our healthcare industry forward. So with that, Colin, thanks again for being with us today.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. We'd love to hear your feedback about the podcast so we can continue to improve this community and to further support the pioneers being featured. Lastly, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and invite your friends and colleagues to join us. This is Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. I look forward to having you back with us during our next episode.